What is going on, everyone, and welcome to my post 1 Tamriel new beginner's guide. So a lot of you guys have been asking me to do some more beginner's guides, and I decided I wanted to make some that are catered towards people who are newer to the game, between like 1 to 3 months new, and or just people in general who haven't played for a long time or just completely don't understand it. So I am always open to feedback. Since this is the first video, I wanted to go over enchanting and how it works. So it's more of like a in-depth kind of detailed video. So I'll explain how to do it, what things are, and try to explain how to get things. Now, I understand not everyone's going to have various things, but I'm just going to go over the basics. So I'll try to make this as simple as possible so everyone can understand it. Even if you are like buying the game tomorrow, you'll have a general idea of how things are going. So this is the crafting station. There are 50 levels. It goes from 1 to 50. That's briefly before we do anything. There are other ones like alchemy, but don't worry, I might do that in a different video so we don't get confused. So in your skill tree right here, we have aspect improvement, potency improvement, the keen eye, which allows you to see things further when you're in the world looking for the nodes. The nodes are what we call it, so you'll see a little like glowing thing, and that's how you know you're picking up various things. So don't really worry about this one too much. It's really if you can't see it or you're purposefully farming it, so it just makes things easier to see. The hirelings are every 24 hours or every 12 hours. You get some new materials that they give you every day, so it's kind of good to have. I wouldn't really worry about this one until you somewhat know what you're doing or you're leveled up to the point where you have enough skill points left over. Because I would honestly start maxing out your other things like your weapon abilities and other passives before this one. And the extraction, which means when you deconstruct an item, you get a chance to get better stuff, essentially. So these three essentially aren't as important as the first two. Now, there are 4 levels on this one and 10 levels on this one. So what this top one does, the aspect improvement, it allows you to use higher tier and make higher quality items. And the one over here, this potency one, it allows you to use like higher level ones and like higher tier everything. So like essentially, in a nutshell, the higher it is, the more stuff you can craft and the higher tier it will be. So that, in a nutshell, is what it is. Now let's get into the more detailed part of it. You see over here, we'll just go into extraction first to get this out of the way. Extraction is when you have stuff that you find all over the world and you don't need it. Essentially, what you do to extract it is put it in there and then hit the extract button, and then you get some materials back. So it's like recycling in a way. Okay, so the last part, this part is the most I wouldn't say complicated, but it's definitely something that you are going to have to look into or have more details for in the near future. Most of this is either tailored towards endgame or just people who know what they want. So to keep everything simple, let's go over everything. This one, the aspect one, is the tier of the item you're gonna, or the enchantment you're gonna be making. So, as you may imagine, this game goes from white, as in, we'll start from the bottom, white, and then green, and then blue, then purple, and then golden. So, that will determine, like, the higher quality and the more rare it'll be. So, we'll start with itself. It doesn't really matter what this one is. Essentially, if you are a newer player, you're going to be using probably white, green, and blue. If you're endgame, you're going to be using purple and gold. Don't really use the gold ones unless you're capped out and you know exactly what you want. Simply because these are expensive and not, I wouldn't say they're hard to come by, but it's definitely you get less of them than the lower ones, as you may imagine. So, for demonstration purposes, we'll just be using the white one. And this one will be like the tier quality of it. So over here in the second one, this one will be the element or something we're going to be increasing. So essentially, like if you want more stamina, you would, or if you wanted something stamina based in general, you would put like something like that. There's regen, there's pretty much everything you could think of in this game. More weapon power, fire, all kinds of elements, better potion effects, everything. So for demonstration purposes, we're just gonna do something simple. Let's say, I don't know, we'll just do fire because it's an element, right? So essentially what you should get out of the green tree, we're just gonna call it circle, triangle, and square. Just, it makes sense, yeah? The triangle one is essentially the element or the thing you want to be increasing or improvement. And the potency is how we do it. And what the green thingy, as you guys can see on the screen, it goes from 1 through 10, which, as we covered before, 1 through 10, it'll tell you like what level you can use. And it's more of like something that you won't have access to everything right off the bat. So I'll just show you some examples. So for example, if we have a reduce, it's kind of like prefix and suffix. That's just kind of complicated. We'll just use pluses and minuses in a way. So let's say if you want to reduce fire or increase or like reduce fire damage you take, this one will be, since we have the white tier item, and then a fire, and then reduced fire. So you get a flame resistance. Now the one I used was an improvement level 1. So that means you have to look at the item minimum level, and that's what you should be using at the time. So let's say if we wanted to, if you didn't want like a resistance, but you wanted to increase fire, you would have increased fire damage. And you have to look at what this does, because it can either be put on a weapon, an armor, jewelry, or various other things. So you have to make sure you know what you want, but you can always experiment with other things. And there's always like lists on Google of like full detailed what you should do. But just to get the general concept of it, so like you can have a lot of different combinations. And so this one is a level 2 one. That means the minimum level you can use it on is level 10. And this deals fire damage. So it really just depends on what you want and then how you have different combinations. So this one is a little bit different. It goes on your jewelry. Previously we had one that also went on jewelry, except this one was level 1, and then this one is the minimum level 20. So based on your level, I would say make sure to look at the green stat at the bottom. That is probably the most important one, just so you could get the idea of what level you should be around. And after a while, after like you get the understanding of how to create various things, you go to the circle tier and then you want to upgrade it. So like this will be a little bit different. So essentially you have these two, which will be the same flame resistance. However, if we have a green tier item instead, it'll be a higher quality. So essentially we have the same thing, except the higher, more resistance, higher quality. Essentially your goal is to get them all up to gold tier. However, usually if you're not doing champion point 160 items, I would probably just cap out at purple, since the price gap between purple and gold is a huge difference, about like 4,500 gold difference. So usually, just a small tip from a person who's been playing for a long time, unless you have the money to spend for gold tier items, just cap out at purple, unless you're either 1, really rich, 2, making an item or a glyph for a maxed out character, because quite honestly, the difference between purple and gold tier for non high end game items is really not that much. But if you're looking for top of the line items, then gold is the way to go. Purple, I would still say, is very solid. And then for everything else, since this is a beginner's guide, we'll stick with white, green, and blue, just because I assume that this is what you guys are going to be using as well. So, as always, just a little recap on what's happening. Let's say you wanted, I don't know, power to add something to your weapon. So the way you have to look at this is essentially, what do you want? Do you want more weapon damage, which obviously goes on your weapon? Do you want something that goes on your armor pieces? Do you want more resistances? So what you have to look at is more armor or something based on what you want. And then we go into the square tree, and then there are like positives and negatives. So usually the positives will give you a buff, but the negatives will like either reduce incoming damage to you or somewhat debuff your enemy. And that's the way I look at it. So I don't honestly expect anyone to actually remember half of these things by the name. So it's pretty much like pluses and minuses, and what do you want to improve, and then the tier quality. So for the most part, that's pretty much it. And then obviously the minimum level, the higher like improvement level you go, the higher level it'll be. Obviously things get better. But just in a nutshell, that was pretty much it. And then after that, you just hit the craft button, and then it'll make some funny noises. And yeah, so once again, just as a little thing that I forgot to mention, that if you are completely new to this, some of these are going to have question marks right here. That's because you haven't discovered like what the effects will actually be. So there's a lot of experimenting you're going to have to do, and so it's always good to always test it with the white items, and then before attempting to morph something up into like the highest tier immediately. So sometimes you're going to see like a question mark right here, and that just means that you haven't discovered what the effect would be. So it's a lot of experimenting. I would say enchanting is one of the more difficult things to like get to 50, but some other tips I can give you. The best way to max this out is by trading, and if you like buy or trade glyphs, this is essentially what happens. When you get a glyph, when you craft it, you get one glyph of what you made, right? And then when you extract it, you get some experience back into extracting. However, stuff you find from around the world or that is traded, bought, something, they usually give you more if they're not yours initially, or when it says created by. So if it's someone else's and you like swap it between your friends, it'll give you more experience. That is a confirmed thing already, but it's like intentional. So they don't want people to just like stack the same item over and over and then extract it. They want you to like actually find your own or trade it with a friend. That way you get a little bit more XP. Also, by doing the daily writs, essentially you go to a notice board and then it gives you a daily quest, but I don't really want to confuse you any more than that. So essentially get yours to 50 by like just crafting things in general, experimenting with a lot of other things, and then yeah, that's pretty much enchanting. So if you guys enjoyed the video and thought it was somewhat simple, I didn't overly complicate things, feel free to give it a quick like, and if you have any other recommendations for beginner's guides, feel free to let me know. I do like helping other people out, especially the people who are newer to the game. And yeah, so let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in a bit.